It's absolutely beautiful where I am today. So I've got the windows open. There's a road just outside my window, which is right here. So there might be some vehicle noise in this video. I apologize in advance for that. I want to talk about how different types view themselves. And I'm going to start with the IPs. So everyone is naturally going to have some opinion of himself or herself and think thoughts about him or herself, but everybody approaches that self-thought process just a wee bit differently. When it comes to IPs will have extremely strong opinions of themselves. They'll have strongly formed and held identities that they cultivate and culture in their own mind. And those identities and those opinions of themselves are largely going to be independent of anyone else's opinion of them. Now, the way that plays out is that some IPs will think extremely highly of themselves. They will literally go through life saying, I'm awesome. Everybody needs to look at me because they will all benefit from seeing how awesome I am and what I can do and how much I contribute to the world. Other IPs will think quite the opposite of themselves. They will think I'm trash, I'm garbage, I'm worthless, I have no value in this world. Now, the problem with the IP is that because the IP develops that opinion of self, independent of anyone else's opinion of him or her, it's almost impossible to get the IP to stop thinking so strongly about himself until life circumstances really kick him in the butt to get him to think otherwise. So if you have an IP that goes through life saying, I'm awesome, everybody should look at me and be so impressed by me, even if a whole bunch of other people come along and say, you know what, you really think too much of yourself, the IP is probably not going to listen to that. In fact, the IP is probably going to, at first, be really hurt and be like, how do these people not see how awesome I am? And then eventually settle on the idea, well, those people are just dumb. They don't know. I know that I'm totally awesome. Of course, the IP who thinks I'm garbage, I'm trash, I'm worthless, is going to have come to that conclusion through self-analysis, through looking at everything that he or she has said and done, and coming to the conclusion that because of my ways, my way of acting or speaking, or the things that I've said, the things that I've done, the way that I am of no value. Now, all human beings are of great value, but the IP who has settled on the idea, I am garbage, will be stuck in that idea until life circumstances show them otherwise. Because all of the people in their lives can come along and say, hey, this is not true. You are of great value. But the IP will likely not give a significant amount of credence or consideration to those opinions, because the IP is focused on developing an opinion of self that comes from self and introspection, and no consideration, or almost no consideration, for what others think of him or her. Now, if we were to contrast that with the EJs, we would see a very different perspective on life. EJs are going to draw greatly upon how others view them. So the EJ that is told really positive things about himself will tend to believe those positive things about himself without ever actually checking in and doing any deep self-analysis, without ever really paying attention to self and saying, okay, I hear all these people saying these nice things about me. Is it true? Also, for the EJ, if those around that person are belittling to him or her, or demeaning, or say, hey, you are trash, you are worthless, the EJ will have a very difficult time looking at self independent of the opinions of others and saying, you know what, I don't care that all of these people say that I am garbage. I know that I am of great value. So we have a very different dichotomy between the EJs and the IPs. An IP could have everyone saying, you are so wonderful, we're so happy that you're in our lives. And if the IP has concluded, no, I'm garbage, I'm trash, everyone else's positive opinion of him will not matter. On the flip side of that, for the EJ, if the people are saying you're trash, he or she will tend to believe that and not say, you know what, I'm not listening to you. These are two extremes. And when it comes to opinion of self and where it comes from and how strongly it's held, the EJs and the IPs are at the extremes. The EJs are far too dependent upon other people's opinions of them without spending enough time self-analyzing and checking in with self to say, what am I really and who am I really? And the IPs are far too dependent upon self-opinion and constant introspection and looking at self and analyzing self and coming to the conclusion either I'm amazing or I'm trash, and not checking in with the group to say, hey, group, what do you think of me? How am I seen by other people? Do other people value me? Do other people think that I'm an egotistic jerk, or do other people think that I am garbage or somewhere in between, as is often the case? Honestly, other people's opinions of us tend to be, over the long haul, somewhere in the middle, right? You're going to have those 20% of people who think you're the most amazing thing ever, those 20% of people who think you're absolute garbage, and then the 60% in the middle who don't really have very strong opinions of you at all. Now, the types that will tend to be more balanced as it pertains to this opinion of self will be the EPs and the IJs. EPs are going to be a little bit more self-focused, but are very willing to consider others' opinions of them in order to have a more well-rounded identity, a more well-rounded understanding of self. They will tend to, in and of themselves, have an opinion of self that has been somewhat introspective and somewhat aware, but at the same time also be able to take in the opinions of others to influence his or her opinion of self so that they have a more balanced opinion. IJs might be slightly more apt to listen to the opinions of others, but will still be well capable of checking in with self to say, no, I understand that these people said these wonderful things about me, and I appreciate that, but I can also see the areas where I have some deficiencies, or vice versa. I can see why these people are pointing out the deficiencies that I have, and they're right, and I need to work on those things. But I can also see the areas where I'm strong, the areas where I benefit my fellow man, let's say. And I think the EPs and the IJs in general, though they'll have a different approach, EPs being a little bit more self-focused and a little, but still able to balance, how do other people see me? IJs being a little more, how do other people see me? But able to balance, how do I see myself? EPs and IJs are going to come to a more well-rounded opinion of self. IPs and EJs will be a little bit more off the charts in other directions. IPs inconsolable when they think poorly of themselves because they are not willing to listen to the opinions of others, and unable to be humbled when they think extremely well of themselves because they won't listen to the opinions of others. EJs listening so much to the opinion of others that they fail to really do an honest analyzation of who they are if they would just really look in the mirror and analyze their whole life and come to a conclusion that says, I hear what the people out there are saying, but I also see from my own perspective this aspect about myself that helps to counterbalance what other people are saying of me. I think that the EPs and the IJs in this circumstance, when it comes to self-identity, really have it right. They're going to do a better job of being more balanced and not falling into the extremes. IPs and EJs, not so much. So whichever one you are, keep that in mind. Consider that. If you are an IP and you think that you're all that and a bag of chips, you might be great and you might have some amazing things to contribute to the world, but keep in mind you do have deficiencies as well that you need to work on. If you're an IP and you think you're garbage, you're not. So stop thinking that. You're of great value, as all human beings are. Maybe you can't see it, but maybe you need to listen to the people around you who are trying to tell you about the value that you provide to the world. If you're an EJ and the people around you are telling you that you're wonderful, you probably are, but check in with yourself and see that you probably have some deficiencies that you could stand to work on. And if you're an EJ and all the people around you are telling you that you're garbage, you're not. don't listen to them. I mean, you can listen to them because maybe they have some true points in there somewhere, but also check in with yourself and ask yourself, what are the contributions that you have made to this world and to the people around you? Because you probably do offer great value. And look to the EPs and the IJs in your life to see how balance is attainable, because they can do it. While we're having this conversation, I'm going to sidetrack for 1 second to just say that if you have been watching my channel and benefiting from it, would you please consider donating financially to what I'm doing? There's a link in the description below where you can do so. And I would greatly appreciate it if you did, and thank you to those who have. So this question of identity is such an important issue. More important, I think, to the IPs and the EJs. It often rules their thinking. It rules their life. IPs and EJs are going to struggle much more with the questions of who am I, oftentimes than EPs and IJs will. We are all capable of doing all things. We will all struggle with all things that can be struggled with. But for you EPs and IJs out there, I want you to understand that the IPs and the EJs in your life are in a constant turmoil in their mind about some combination of who am I, how do I see myself, how do other people see me. We are constantly, we IPs, and I understand from my interactions with people, the EJs as well, are constantly mulling over in our heads, how are we viewed by others, and how do we view ourselves, and how do we reconcile these things? And are we who we want to be? And are we who we want others to be? Are we who others want us to be? Should we care who others want us to be? Should we care who we want ourselves to be? These struggles plague IPs and EJs oftentimes night and day. As we age, as we experience, and as we mull through these issues, we oftentimes can strike a better balance. So IPs can, over time, realize that they need to pay a closer attention to what other people say of them and not just completely create their own identity in their minds without checking in with the group. EJs, over time, can learn that they can have strong opinions of themselves without having to be so pushed around and swayed by what everyone else says of them. They don't always have to ask everyone else, what do you think of me? Although that question will usually not come out in those exact words. But if you watch EJs or if you listen to them, you'll find them asking those questions in their own ways. The TEs, like the ESTJs and ENTJs, will be checking in with other people on, is this the best way? Am I doing this right? Is this good? They're looking for, where do I fit in on the spectrum of extroverted thinking? Am I smart enough? Am I accomplishing things well enough? Am I doing a good job? The FEs are going to look at it from a different perspective, a little bit more, am I valued? How do I make people feel? Do we all feel good together? Do we fit in well together? The IPs are going to be much more concerned with, for the TIs, much more concerned with, do I believe that I am smart enough? Do I believe that I am capable enough? And am I doing a good job of showing the world that, so that they will all look at me and go, basically, wow, that's really amazing. And the FIs are more, a lot of times along the line of, am I cool enough? Am I good enough? Am I true enough? Am I consistent on a daily basis with who I believe myself to be inside? These are the issues that plague the IPs and the EJs. So be patient with them whenever they're struggling with people issues, especially if it's not something that terrifies you to the degree that it terrifies them. Thank you so much for watching. Do please click the like button if you found this to be entertaining, informational, useful. Please subscribe if you have not already. As I said a moment ago, if you would consider contributing to my cause here, I would greatly appreciate that. Or if you would like to request a personalized video, there's an opportunity for you to do that at the same link in the description below. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much, and bye now.